when it comes to the potential upsets on the docket for this upcoming Saturday, where might they be? To be real with y'all, taking a look at the slate, this is potentially the worst upset slate so far that we have had to this point in the season. And when I say that, I mean like if you were planning a picnic, kind of like I prefaced at the top of this live show, you would probably feel pretty good about keeping those plans outdoors. I don't think there's a ton of upsets to be aware of. Now, that could be the final last words that I say before we get just a ton of upsets this upcoming weekend. From where I stand, though, I don't think there's too much meat on the bone. Now, with that being said, last week, we did this same segment. And again, they're not predictions, just kind of a forecast. Gave you 4 games that were potential upsets. 3 of those ended up happening. Stanford over Colorado, Iowa over Wisconsin, and Pitt over Louisville. We had LSU and Auburn on that as well. That obviously did not happen. Not predictions, just a forecast. Without further ado, let's get into it. Texas goes to Houston. Texas was on a bye last week. Lost to Oklahoma the week before in Red River. Houston is a 22.5-point dog at the crib. Now, to be clear, if this were to happen, it would require a Texas meltdown. So I do not think this is going to happen, to be real with y'all. I just think it's worth watching the way that Texas responds in this spot. First loss of the season, had a bye week to kind of get out of your system. Did the bye week kind of cause Texas to sort of feel like they don't have anything they have to clean up? Was it kind of a reassuring bye week for Texas where it's like, hey, we watched the film, got that out of our system, got the weekend behind us, cool, we're back? Does Texas respond in the sense of, okay, now it's fight or flight. We got to win every single game the rest of the way? Because Houston now, not a G5 game anymore. Houston is a conference game for Texas. And Houston, don't look now, they just took down West Virginia on a Hail Mary last week. So they kind of got some mojo going. Dana Holgorsen got the boys revved up a little bit. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm just saying keep an eye on that one. It's worth watching if you're talking about upsets this upcoming weekend. Air Force at Navy. Yeah, we're talking a little academies here on the program. Navy's a 10.5-point dog at home. Now, this has rivalry game implications. This has Commander-in-Chief trophy implications. And these are 2 teams that run the triple option. The reason why that's worth noting, 1, we love the triple option here on the show, so that's the first part. The other part of this, though, is whenever you run the triple option, mistakes become magnified when they happen. So I'm just saying a couple of freak plays here or there for Air Force, if you have 1 to 2 mistakes, that could change the entire course of this game. Like I said, it's a rivalry game, so you kind of throw common sense to the side just a little bit. Air Force is favored in this game for a reason. At Navy, they're the better team. Coach Peterson was my high school coach. He's currently at Air Force. Love Coach Pete. But I think Navy is worth keeping an eye on in this game. Again, at home for the mids. So watch that one. Keep an eye on that one. Air Force also, I believe, at this point in time is ranked. You see a lot of those expanded playoff conversations starting right now. Air Force would be in that expanded playoff where we're starting this year. Should they win out, you would think. So keep an eye on that. I thought about putting Michigan at Michigan State on here. Didn't do it. I want to just mention it because it's a rivalry game. I think Michigan throttles Michigan State. I'm not even going to talk about it like it's an upset. It would take some rivalry magic for Michigan State. So, again, not really talking about that one. Just want to mention that one. I'll show y'all. I had it on my notes, and I just totally I just X'd it out. Just totally crossed the whole thing out. So, thought about talking about it. We're not talking about it, but Michigan at Michigan State is happening this weekend. Washington State at Oregon. Oregon coming off a loss to Washington. Kind of a letdown spot, just a little bit for them. Washington State also got throttled last weekend against Arizona. Did not see that coming. Didn't have it on the bingo card. Arizona, I think, is a better football team than a lot of people want to give credit for. How does Oregon handle coming off a loss? Similar to what I said about Texas at Houston, it would require an Oregon meltdown. It would require the Oregon psyche to be all out of sorts. But Cam Ward now, quarterback for Washington State, we say it every single weekend. If you got a quarterback, you got a chance. And Washington State has a quarterback. They're 20.5-point dogs in Autzen. I'd feel different about this game if it was in Pullman. I probably would like Washington State's chances just a little bit more. But keep an eye on that one. Dual threat quarterback in Cam Ward, a guy who can throw the ball downfield well. Just something to keep an eye on with Oregon kind of licking their wounds after that Washington game. And Washington State also kind of backed into a corner now and how they respond coming off their loss. Now, Duke at Florida State. is a game that we previewed already on this show. We think Florida State wins that game outright, but Duke, they got a good defense. They probably, at this point in time, I don't know for sure. I'm going to go ahead and say they don't have Riley Leonard in this game. How does Florida State respond to a quarterback they don't have a ton of film on? I'm just saying, if Florida State plays down to the level of their competition, like we've seen them do before, the Boston College game comes to mind. This one could be intriguing. I still think Florida State wins that game outright, like we talked about already on the show and how we broke it down for y'all. But I think Duke, with how tough they play defensively and just the identity of that team, being able to run the football is going to be a big thing for them. Just keep an eye on that game. Would not be surprised if that's close in the early going. Like we flipped to that thing at halftime and it's like, oh, it's 21-14 Florida State or something like that. Wouldn't surprise me. Regardless, we'll watch that one. Now, I told y'all it's a week where we are really scraping the bottom of the barrel here when it comes to this upset forecast segment. Like, I don't think there's a ton to break down here. How about this one? This is for all the college football junkies. North Texas, plus 20.5 at Tulane, at a ranked Tulane, homecoming for the Green Wave. Now, Tulane should throttle North Texas, let's be clear. North Texas, though, they're throwing the football 35 times a game. They're scoring 34 points a game. Don't look now, but Tulane is not great against the pass, allowing over 250 yards passing a game. So maybe you sprinkle a little bit there on the points for North Texas. I'm just saying, something to keep an eye on. But I think Tulane wins that game. But that's one that I think is a little bit more intriguing than the rest of this pack. So I think Air Force at Navy is probably the one to watch for most closely in this forecast. North Texas at Tulane right behind it. But regardless, there's upsets every single week in college football, it feels like. That's the forecast for this upcoming weekend. Back to you guys for the news. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.